Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sarah, and today I will be hosting this presentation about the graduate studies possibilities at the University of Montreal. So before we start, I would like to outline a few things. So first of all, this presentation is being recorded and will be available for you to watch at your convenience on our website, admission.umontreal.ca, as well as on our YouTube channel. Your mics and your cameras will be turned off during the presentation. However, please feel free to ask us our questions using the Q&A sections. Some members of our team will share links in the chat section throughout the presentation. So today we will first talk about scholarships. Then we will talk a little bit about the graduate application process. And then we will chat with a student about his journey at the University of Montreal. And finally, we will answer your questions. So I am pleased to introduce to you my guest today, Patrick Lehoux-Gagnon, who is a coordinator at the Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies Office. We also have Clément Arsenault with us, Director and Vice-recteur of the Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies Office. And there's also a student with us, Clément Arsenault, who studies comparative literature. So first of all, Patrick, hi. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I have a few questions for you. So for those who are interested in graduate studies, what kind of scholarships are available and how do we find them?
So basically, we have four big categories of scholarships that we manage at the Faculty of Graduate Studies at UDM. So the first category pertains to Canadian and Quebec granting agencies. So more specifically at the Canadian level, we have research councils divided into different fields of studies that offer scholarships. The different fields are the fields of health, social sciences, and also natural sciences and engineering. Then there's the provincial level also. So we have the FRQ, so Fonds de Recherche du Québec. So it's another big granting agency on the provincial side that offers also many scholarships. And here again, there's sub-agencies divided by fields of study. So that's the first big category. Then there's another one that pertains to the scholarships that are offered by the departments and the faculties of UDM in which students study. Then there's a third category, that's the scholarship opportunities offered by the Faculty of Graduate Studies. And then lastly, we also have people that can do some large donations. And with that, we offer also some scholarships. So you can see that there's a lot of different opportunities of financial aid, and the way to keep track of these opportunities, I'd say the first thing is to regularly check your emails, because at the Faculty of Postgraduate Studies, we send out emails mostly every time there's a new funding opportunity that comes up. So we send all the different details on how to apply, all the different deadlines to the departments and the faculties. Another way to check, and we can share a link in the discussion, but it's through our scholarship directory. So it's sort of like a search engine we have on our website for all the different scholarship opportunities we manage at UDM. And so you can get all the different details there. And the last really interesting tool is a calendar we have on our website. And you can see throughout the year all the different scholarships, the different dates, when to apply, and all those details. So we can share also a link in the chat.
Thank you so much. I also have another question. So are there other funding options at the University of Montreal that people might not know about?
So there's different other different opportunities than the ones I've just mentioned. So in addition to the four categories of scholarships I mentioned, there's also some external funding opportunities that we can share on our scholarship directory that I mentioned. So they're not necessarily managed by the UDM, but by UDM and by the postgraduate department, but they can be relevant to some of your situations or your needs. And so they're always worthwhile consulting on our scholarship directory. And in addition to scholarships, we also have some student employment opportunities that can be interesting. So we don't necessarily manage those at the Faculty of Graduate Studies, but I'd recommend as a student you inquire about those opportunities directly to your department.
Thank you. And what are some of the most frequent mistakes people make, and how can we avoid them?
So I'd say the first tip I have is, it might sound obvious to some students, but it's that the more you apply for scholarship opportunities, the more experience you can gain and the more chances you have of obtaining some funding. So most students, in our experience, they tend to believe that their file might not be the best or at the top of the list. So they think that sometimes it's not worthwhile, applying to different opportunities. So they sometimes eliminate themselves and don't give themselves the chances and don't even try. So what I'd say is, as a golden rule, if you have all the requirements for a specific scholarship or funding opportunity, I'd say you should always apply and let, in the end, the committee that evaluates all the different files, let them decide. So you never know how many students have applied, if the committee will take into consideration some special considerations, and what their final decision will be. So that's one thing I'd say. And another mistake sometimes is that people don't often seek help or advice when they're in the process of preparing their application file. So I'd say you should seek help by asking your research director, or we also offer numerous services at UDM. So we can share a few links in the chat about those. But the first thing is we offer a workshop service. So it helps you prepare your application. And this service is offered by Les Saisons, which is a department in the graduate studies faculty. So that's one. And the second is there's also a scholarship clinic that exists at UDM. So that's a service that's offered by students. And what they can help you with is consultation services regarding the preparation of your application file. And they can also review your application documents before you submit them. So those are two interesting tools that I recommend everyone to use.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Now, I would like to share some information about the UDM Exemption Scholarship Program. So it's designed to support international candidates in their university studies. So this program exempts them from the tuition fees normally charged to the international students. So who can benefit from this scholarship program? It's basically all international students admitted as of fall who hold a study permit and who are neither permanent residents nor Canadian citizens. It's also the people who will be enrolled full-time in a study program throughout their studies, who will not benefit from another form of tuition fee exemption through another policy or measure. So for example, French and Belgian Francophone students already benefit from this type of exemption. So if you are interested, we invite you to visit the Office of the Registrar website to learn all about the exclusions. So that's it for this portion. Now, Clément Arsenault, I have a few questions for you pertaining to the graduate application process. So first of all, what are the main steps to take to be well prepared when applying for graduate studies?
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Well, first of all, it is important to identify the program that interests you. And that may seem like something obvious, but you have to know that at Université de Montréal, there are over 400 graduate programs. So there might be programs that you don't even know about. So it's important to explore the programs. And also you have to know that many of the programs have options that are disciplinary specializations within the program. For instance, we have a PhD in physics. We have a general option. We also have within that program medical physics option, or particle physics option, or plasma physics option. So it's important to not only explore the programs, but to read a little bit about them and check out the structure of the program to see if there might be a specialization that interests you even more. It's important to do that ahead of time because each term you will only be allowed to submit one application. However, it is possible to select 2 programs in the same application. So you have 2 choices per term. Each of your choice will be analyzed independently from the other, so there's no priority given to any choice. But so as I recommend that you carefully read the program about the program on the admission website of the university. Talking about the admission website, it's probably the best tool to really identify the programs that are of interest to you. You will find a very detailed presentation of each program. And it's also possible to, of course, browse and search by keywords or browse the proposed disciplinary groupings of the programs. So again, read them carefully to ensure that you select the appropriate program for your educational objectives. You will find elements such as program objectives, whether the program has internships or if it involves writing a thesis or a dissertation. You will also find on these pages the contact information for if you have further questions about the program. So you have to know that the admission at the graduate level is analyzed. All these files are analyzed by the departments, and they're further and then afterwards they are sent to graduate and postdoctoral studies, which is our office. But each program is each application is first analyzed by a committee of 3 professors in the department. So if you have further questions, it's best to contact the departments. You will find the contact person on these just program descriptions. Look also at the structure of the program. There is a tab for that. The list of required courses and the electives will be there. And of course, very important, the admission criteria. Each program may have its own specific requirements and criteria for admission. They might ask for specific documents that are not necessarily asked in other programs. So it's very important to look at what is required ahead of time so that you can gather all the documents needed once you submit you start filling out your application.
Thank you. My next question for you is, how do you find a research supervisor?
Yes, this is a very important question. It's a very important step in the admission process in a graduate study program, because for all research-oriented master's or PhD, it is required to have a professor that will be your supervisor. Some masters program do not require the writing of a thesis, so you don't need a supervisor. But if it's a research-oriented thesis, masters, then you will have to identify a supervisor. And many programs will even require that this advisor be found before submitting the application. So that's why you have to really look ahead of time at what is required, because you may have some work to do before to identify and secure a supervisor for your studies. And how to proceed for that? Well, there are several ways. You can first of all consult the research profiles of our researchers at Université de Montréal. We have, I think, over 1,200 different researchers, and there is a directory that you can browse on the research pages of our website. And you will be able to browse that directory and to search by keyword as well. And you will have usually a very good description of what the specializations and the research interests of the professors are. Then once you've identified a few of them that would be possibly able to supervise your studies, then you can really contact them, just contact them through email. And if they have a position for either a master's or a PhD student, they will contact you and respond to you. And then if after a short discussion, after analyzing your CV, he or she accepts you as a student, then he will or she will write a letter of acceptance that will be that you will have to upload in your application process. The other way to search is to contact the program chair. As I said before, this will be identified in the pages for each program. You will have the name of the person who is the program chair, and ask him or her to circulate your CV and the draft of your project to the professors in the department. So that's another way, more indirect way to search, but it's also quite effective. In any case, it's strongly recommended that you obtain an interview with your future supervisor to make sure that it's the right choice for you, because a graduate program lasts, for a master's program it's 2 years, and for a PhD it's usually about 5 years. So it's an important element in your studies.
Thank you. Now, what are some of the important dates to remember?
Well, the important dates are listed on the admissions website of the university, but the most important dates are the deadlines that for all application program for applying to graduate programs. For the fall term, an admission during the fall, it's February 1st. And for summer, it's also February 1st. And if you want to be admitted during the winter term, it's September 1st. Almost all programs will have admissions open for the fall term. Not all programs will accept students during summer or during winter, but you have to check if it's possible on the description of the program that will be written. So apart from these dates, you have to know that some non-quota programs may extend the admission period beyond these dates if space is still available. So sometimes they will extend it to for maybe 3 more months to May 1st. So if you missed the first deadline, it might still be possible to submit an application. You have to check if the program has extended its application deadline. And but I would recommend to try to meet the first deadline, because that's when you have the most chances of being accepted. And just a last word on the processing time for before you receive an answer after you submitted your application. Most of the time, files are not reviewed before the deadline, so the committees will gather a little bit after the first deadline of February 1st, for instance, and they will render the decision. And we, at Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies, we send out the acceptance letters, usually within 1 or 2 months after the end of the admission period. And once the admission notice is received, the applicant has 10 days to accept or to refuse the offer. So that's these are the important dates.
Thank you. And my last question for you is, are there any resources to make the process easier?
Well, as I said, for graduate programs, each program has its own specific requirements and particularities. So my advice would be to first contact the program coordinator, the program chair at the department, and the other person that's also a good person to talk to for more technical-oriented questions would be the student file technician. We call it in French TGDE, Technicien en Gestion des Dossiers Étudiants. So the TGDE will be able to guide you if you have problems, for instance, uploading documents and these kind of things. But the program coordinator will help you if you want to, as I said before, identify a supervisor or to tell you more about the, for instance, the length of the program and all the important steps within the program.
Thank you so much, Clément Arsenault. Now I have some questions for you, Clément Ossard. So first of all, what made you choose the University of Montreal?
So thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to speak a little bit about that. Comparative literature, the field as a whole, has a storied history with Université de Montréal. It's also unique as the only university in North America to offer graduates and postgraduates alike comprehensive classes in comparative literature and theories. So my supervisor, whose profile I found beforehand in my research for a graduate program, happened to read my application and found it interesting enough that she offered to follow me and guide me, even though my research proposition didn't make much sense at the time. And I was quite happy to accept her offer, as my supervisor is also an authority in the field I study. And another big reason was the fact that Université de Montréal actually itself is the paragon of a city that is made for students, especially since I don't own a car and the public transportation system is quite good. And I was also looking for a cosmopolitan community, and Montreal just provided me that in spades, Université de Montréal as well. And finally, the prestige of Université de Montréal worldwide meant that I would have no issues finding a position either in Canada or wherever I might go after my time in Montreal.
Thank you, Clément. My next question for you is, can you tell us a little bit more about your current studies?
Sure. So though they are still my current studies, they're starting to get a little bit behind me because I've just defended my thesis last September. This is my last semester at UDM. And after 5 years, basically writing the studies and 2 years, 2 years having classes and all. Yeah, that's about that.
Thank you. And can you tell us a little bit more about your current research topic?
Yeah, so my current research topic concerns white race representation and with the carnivalesque lens, looking at movie, TV shows, and novels from the late 90s and the early 2000s. So I'm comparing specifically Coen Brothers movies like Fargo and Big Lebowski and the movies from Bruno Dumont, so comparing the representation of white trash, both in north of France and the Appalachia, with the Ill Bitty Elegy from by G.D. Vance. That's the small of it, yeah.
Nice, interesting, thank you. And what are the work and funding opportunities for graduate students?
So I was given a welcome scholarship that allowed me to pay most of my tuition in the first year. Then, depending on my results in courses, I was granted additional funds. Also, I was provided travel funds to conferences. At several times during my research, my supervisor offered me research contracts, so that I could help her with her readings and preparing content for her classes or books. And apart from that, I was also lucky to find a job at the Bureau de valorisation de la langue française de la francophonie, which employed me for 3 years, I believe, as a mentor. And they provided me with a very flexible schedule because they understand that we're working as students there. So I also tried to apply for several scholarships from the Quebec government, but those scholarships, especially in comparative literature, can be few and far between and a little bit harder to get. But I imagine there are more opportunities in other fields.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell us a little bit about your schedule? What is it like?
Yeah, so for the first 2 years, I had classes 2 days a week, and then I had my personal work time at the library, which basically became a second house, of course. And after those classes were done, I was quite free to manage my time basically as I wanted, because I decided when to wake up, when to take my time at the library, and when to put my hours as a French mentor as well. So ultimately, even though it is a very busy life, it's the paradox is that you get to manage your time, so to speak, as you want. Of course, ultimately, what that means is holidays kind of disappear because your personal day and your work day kind of mix together that way. But the liberty, the freedom I found in that meant that it was more liberating than constraining.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And are you right now working on any special projects?
So if we're talking about projects apart from my research, which took me a great deal of time, I was also involved in a musical theater club at UDM, which is the Comum, and I was both like participant and an enthusiastic organizer and president there for 2 years. Apart from that, working as a mentor for non-French speaking students was not just a job opportunity, but also something that I like doing. So whenever I could, I spent time with other students, helping them learning French, and there are a great deal of opportunities existing, but that was the way I was able to do it. But yeah, all those 3 activities took quite a bit of time. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And what challenges, surprises, or discoveries did you experience in moving to another country?
So yeah, making connections and acclimating to different country, different culture, and different sometimes like system. A PhD in Canada is different from a French doctorate in quite a lot of ways. The good thing was I always felt accompanied, and I thought I was way more. I felt way more like a part of something. Like of a department, as I think I would if I had stayed in France. Because in France, research are quite solitary. You can, of course, organize conferences and colloquiums, but it's not the same sense of community I found. Also, my supervisor was wonderful all the way through. She helped me. She was concerned about my well-being, both as a researcher and as a person. And that sense of belonging to the university, and that I could all aspects of my life could take place in Université de Montréal. All that meant that I felt content and happy, while also struggling with arguably one of the most challenging thing you can do, which is moving to a different country and starting a PhD program.
Of course. Okay, thank you. And what would you say to someone who is worried about the francophone aspect of the University of Montreal, for example?
So of course I was lucky to start off in a new country that had two languages that I speak, I believe, fairly well, French and English. But it's for people who don't speak French, it's such a challenge to uproot yourself completely. It's not just the language; it's also the cultural baggage that comes with it. So the challenge can seem momentous with the added barrier of language, but there are so many opportunities, both in Université de Montréal and Montreal in general, for non-French speaking students to discover French and to take a liking to it, and just add it as an ability that you have, and add it as a feather in your cap, so to speak. It's such a privilege and a chance for a foreign student to come to Montreal and to be able to speak the language, and in about maybe 2 years of that being either intermediate or early advanced in the language, that yes, it's a bargain and you're taking on a huge task, but you're as long as you're finding the opportunities and finding people to help you, resources, you will be accompanied and you won't be left alone, because everything to uphold francophonie at Université de Montréal is being made so that it's easier for you than if you were to learn a different language.
Thank you. I think that's very reassuring for the people who are listening. And finally, what are your plans for the near future?
So given that it's my last semester, but I was very fortunate enough to actually start working full-time at the Bureau de valorisation de la langue française de la francophonie, which means that I'm putting all the abilities that I've learned at the COMUM, and so the musical theater association I dealt with, and the abilities that I've honed in as a doctorate student, that right now this is my project, being the best coordinator for the program and taking care of making sure the students are that are trying for the program are accompanied and are content with the progress they're making, and hopefully continuing with working with students who don't speak French and help them learn French. I think that could be a career that I would be interested in.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Clément Arsenault. That was it for my questions for you. Now we will take some of your questions, so the people that are listening. We invite you to simply type them in the Q&A section. And yeah, we'll take some few minutes to answer. I see that some people are already typing them in the Q&A section. That's perfect. And yeah, we'll take the time to answer you. But I might have another additional question for you, Clément Arsenault. So you spoke a little bit about this earlier already, but do you have any tips on how to feel really at home in Montreal?
So to feel really at home in Montreal is very important to find people, and because it's a cosmopolitan community, you will be able to find people from your country of origin, or maybe from your region of origin if you're from Alberta or another province in Canada. But we have a strong Iranian community, for example, and they organize celebrations which are quite good. But I found that the easier way to get into the community here in Montreal is to actually find people from Quebec that are, as long as you show the will and the interest in the culture and the language, you will find people that are going to be more than happy to welcome you and talk with you and engage with the things that you like. And it would have been very easy for me to spend my time with a lot of French speaking from France. And I chose to take the leap and try to get into an association at Université de Montréal. That was a great way for me to actually make friends among Quebecers and Quebecois, I should say. And so that would be one of my advices for you, would be to join a club. Even though you think you don't have the time, you need to find the time so that you feel at home where you are, because your studies and your research will you will get better at those if you're happy and contented, and you feel like you're starting to build roots where you are.
Thank you so much. And now I might have another question for you, Patrick. So are there any misconceptions or myths about scholarships? For example, sometimes we hear people saying, oh, you can get a free scholarship at UDM, or only the best students can get a scholarship. What can you say about that?
So I think that on your point about only the best students can get a scholarship, I think that's definitely a myth. Like I mentioned earlier, I think you shouldn't think that you don't deserve a scholarship when you have all the requirements that are asked for. You know, you never know how many students have applied, what budget needs to be distributed, or what special considerations are going to are taken into account. So there's so many funding opportunities that I think there's definitely a place for some of you. So also more and more, in my experience, Université de Montréal is taking into account special situations in the evaluation process in an effort to steer away just on solely focusing on grades or performance. So that you should definitely take into account. Also, I think another myth, and Clément touched a little bit on that very briefly, but sometimes we think that the most general scholarships are the easiest ones to get. So like provincial scholarships or provincial funds or federal funds. Sometimes we think they're offering so many that it's going to be easier to get. But I think that on the contrary, sometimes the scholarships that are offered by your department or your faculties are usually the ones that are the most accessible because they're specific to your field of studies, and therefore there's a lot of people that are excluded, and it's a lot more specific to you. So most of the time you have more chances applying to those scholarships. So that's a little misconception and something that might encourage you to apply to scholarships that are offered by your department or faculty.
Thank you, Patrick. And now I might have just a last question for you, Clément Arsenault. What will you miss the most about your graduate studies?
Probably the advice and guidance of my supervisor, as well as other mentors and teachers that I found in my program. Their generosity and their time, but when I say miss it, that's because I'm not spending all my days in at the department anymore. COVID changed that, of course. But I know that whenever I have an issue or I need some guidance or I want to give news about what I'm doing, I know that my supervisor and other professors in my field are going to be more than happy to have news from what I'm doing and to provide me with guidance, especially if I'm interested in trying for a postdoctorate. I would miss the ability to use all the resources, JSTOR, Kern, Érudit, and all those resources exist for under and postgrad and graduate and postgraduate. But because I'm still working at Université de Montréal, I'm lucky enough that I get to still use those resources. But I know that if I left completely Université de Montréal, I might need to find a way to look for those resources on my own.
Thank you so much, Clément. So I think that's it for the questions for today. So Clément Arsenault, and Patrick, thank you so much for your time today. I would also like to thank all of those at home or at work who attended this event. Please be sure to follow us on our social media pages and to visit our website often. We will be organizing more events like this in the next few weeks. Thank you again for your interest in the University of Montreal, and I really hope to connect with you soon. So bye, everyone.